Welcome to this bite-sized briefing. This is your opportunity to hear from an elite athlete on an issue that matters to you. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Jenny Wallwork, former professional badminton player who travelled the globe playing her favourite sport, winning a silver medal at the Commonwealth Games. Jenny is very open about the issues she faced around body confidence, even when she was at the top of her game. And there's something that we can all learn from listening to her story and hearing her advice. I'd like to say thank you to Westfield Health too for making this video possible. Let's start with some clips of Jenny's career. So I'm delighted to welcome Jenny Wallwork today. How are you, Jenny?
Hi guys, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. So we've got some quick fire questions to get to know you a little better. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Hope I know the answers.
So first question, where did you grow up?
So I was born in Bolton, actually, in Lancashire, and I moved to Yorkshire when I was 3 months old. So much to my parents' disgust, I started representing Yorkshire at a very young age. But yeah, born in Bolton in Lancashire and lived in Yorkshire my whole life.
That's great. Where was your first badminton match and how old were you?
I started playing at 6 years old, and I think my first competition was at 7 years old in Leeds, where I'm from, and it was amazing. It was just a really cool experience. I love being competitive. It didn't do particularly well, but it wasn't about that. It was about having fun. And yeah, so 7 years old and in Leeds.
Wow. Where was the best place you've played in your career?
Oh, this is an easy one. So Indonesia, badminton in Asia is absolutely massive, just like football is here for us. And we used to go to arenas where we might have a few thousand people here, there, in arenas here, and arenas in Indonesia were packed, and not just in the seats, in the walkways, down the sides of the stand. Everyone was packed in. You couldn't hear yourself think. The atmosphere was absolutely brilliant. So Indonesia holds a very special place in my heart for competing. I absolutely loved playing matches out there.
That's amazing. What was your most embarrassing moment?
Oh, I've had a couple. My most embarrassing moment has to be at 13 years old. I was taken on to Blue Peter. I've been on twice, and the very first time my parents came with me, and they mapped out a small badminton court in the studio, and I had to play against someone that was 20 years older than me, and I think he was showing off a little bit. He wanted to look all good on TV, so he was hitting it really hard at me, and I was just desperately trying to get everything back. And during the actual live shooting, I went back to hit it, and I just smacked the presenter in the face. I remember feeling like, oh my God. And I looked over at my parents who were near the curtain, and you just saw them sort of like slowly disappear. So that is definitely one of my main memories of being embarrassed. The other was playing in the Danish Open, packed arena, everybody watching, and I was on court, and I went to hit this shot, and my legs just got carried away without me, and I started stumbling all the way from the front of the court to the back, and by the time I got to the back, I was flat on my back. And I just remember hearing everyone laugh, and I just lay there laughing myself, because I don't want to take myself too seriously and all, but yeah, it was pretty embarrassing.
That's brilliant. So you've had some low moments. What about high moments? What was your greatest achievement?
My greatest achievement, I think winning that semi-final of the Commonwealth Games was super exciting for me. Going into that gold medal match was really exciting, but actually we were losing. I think we were 20-15 down in the third set, so they needed 1 point to win. And we managed to claw it back. We never gave up. We kept fighting, and to come out with that win and eventually get that silver medal at the Commonwealth Games was a massive achievement, and something that, you know, I look back now with very fond memories of.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So today we're looking at the issue of body confidence. So Jenny, why do you think it's important to be body confident?
I think for me, the way we feel about ourselves is so important, and body confidence has such an impact on our self-esteem. You know, being comfortable in our own skin and really striving for happiness. And I think it's hard to do that when we don't feel good about ourselves. I think someone with high self-esteem really believes in themselves and their abilities, and feels empowered to make their own choices in life and make their own voices heard. And I mean, a lot of the work we do for the Dame Kelly Holmes Trust is having people go out in the community and make a real difference and make a real impact on others. And I think you can only do that when you're feeling good about yourself. And I think that's why I really believe that it's so important.
And this had quite a big impact in your life, in your career, didn't it? What was your experience of this?
Yeah, I mean, hugely. I think obviously being a professional badminton player and a professional athlete in general, all eyes on you a lot of the time. There is a lot of pressure that comes with that, not just from other people, but hugely in part of yourself. You know, I used to play in front of thousands and thousands of people when I competed. So in lots of ways, I guess my body confidence issues started to come from around that. But actually, I was a very strong individual. You know, I liked to take criticism. I wanted to know, I always desperately wanted to know what I could do to get better, to improve, to be the best that I could be. And I was always quite confident in my abilities. And actually, it wasn't until I was 21, just sort of around my 20s, that I put on a little bit of weight. I was traveling a lot, so we weren't in our home routine. We were going away to different countries, particularly Asia, eating different foods. And without really realising it, and without really noticing it, I put on a little bit of weight. And, you know, it wasn't until I got back to Milton Keynes and suddenly we were back in that routine of, it was quite a high pressured situation. We were weighing ourselves every day. We were having to write our weight on a board for all to see. And of course, we're all different heights, different shapes, different sizes. And that was something that I always felt really uncomfortable in. So I think that was one of the most prominent things for me, thinking back, that actually that made me feel really uncomfortable. We used to have fat testing where, you know, we'd have the calipers out to see, you know, different areas of fat percentage on our body, which at times you might feel good enough to do, and other times we all have bad days, we all have uncomfortable days. So I think that environment became quite challenging for me, especially having had put on weight. And I actually developed an eating disorder at the age of 21. And I think that came from external pressure, but it also came from feeling uncomfortable in my own skin. You know, I went onto court, and the sport that I'd loved for so many years and felt so good about, it just changed for me, and there was a noticeable change. And that was suddenly going onto court and feeling like, is everybody looking at me? Is everybody talking about my weight? Is everybody saying that I'm slower now? And suddenly this whole self-confidence, this self-belief, all from poor body image, was something that affected me in such a massive way. And like I say, I just couldn't do the things, a bit like I mentioned at the beginning. You know, when you're feeling good, you feel empowered, you want the best for yourself, you want to help others. And when you're not in that position, it becomes very challenging. So when I developed my eating disorder, which was bulimia, this just had an impact on my life in a way that I had never imagined, really.
What is bulimia? So how did that affect you physically and mentally?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, bulimia is where you eat, it can be a lot of food, it can be very little food, but then you're purging, you're being sick afterwards. And And I guess at the beginning, when it first happened, it was a means to an end. You know, I was being told that I needed to lose weight because I might get injured. I was being told I needed to lose weight because I needed to be faster, which was all quite ironic at the time, because at the time that I was struggling the most, I was actually competing at my highest level. I was winning medals at the Commonwealth Games. I'd reached number 5 in the world. I was number 1 in Great Britain. So at a time that I was doing really well was actually off court, time that I was struggling the most. And exactly like you said, you can't compete, you can't be an athlete when you're not putting the right things into your body. So although I was going to training with a huge smile on my face and giving everyone what they needed to see, actually I felt shocking, and I was tired, I was mentally drained. There was times where I felt my coach talking to me and saying, you know, right, we need to do this, we need to do that, and it was just words. There wasn't anything that was really going through my head that was going to help me in order to get better. Actually, I was just in a very, very difficult place. So yeah, it had a massive impact on the way that I felt, the way I trained, and yeah, the energy in terms of the loss that I had was absolutely huge, because I wasn't getting the things I needed in my body.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. So I imagine in that situation, the natural thing to do is to keep it to yourself, not tell anyone. How did you actually find help with that, and who did you have around you to help with that situation?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, that was something that was really challenging. You know, I was very lucky. I had the best support network I could imagine, you know, and that was from friends to family to coaches. And for whatever reason, in the hardest time of my life, I made the mistake really of not sharing it with anybody. And I think for me, that was probably through a little bit of embarrassment, maybe not feeling like I knew how anybody could help me. So what became a habit initially, and doing something because people were telling me I needed to lose weight, and because I felt like I needed to lose weight, the habit very quickly became an addiction. And then it was something that I couldn't get out of. And for 3 years, I kept it to myself. And I just watched a decline in myself, in my personality, and the things that I loved doing no longer being something that I enjoyed anymore. And actually, it wasn't until one day where I thought, this is not how I want my life to be. You know, we get one shot at this. You know, life is short. I want to make it everything that I can. I want to be happy. I want to enjoy what I do like I used to. So I plucked up the courage, I guess, and I reached out to my psychologist at the time, and I explained to him what was going on, and he actually told me, he was very honest, he was very open, and he said that he didn't have the expertise to deal with, you know, eating disorders, but we could try and find someone that could help me. So I went down that route, and I met somebody else, and I went through different therapies, and if I'm totally honest, they didn't work for me. And I think that's what's important in when you're getting support. Don't just try one thing, and if it doesn't work, give up. Because I tried a number of things. You know, one of the things that I did was I went to a GP, all these things being very, very difficult and challenging as well. You know, they weren't easy things for me to do after having kept that secret for so long. And I went to a GP, and the first thing the GP said was, right, we'll get on the scales. And I got on the scales, and I thought, what a strange thing to ask someone to do who's just sort of shared, you know, quite a big thing with you. And then the second thing she said was, your BMI is not low enough to warrant getting the support. So effectively telling me that I wasn't a low enough weight to need help. So, you know, for some, that would have been the answer to ever stop them talking to anybody again. And again, I didn't want that to be the end. I wanted to be in a better place. And it wasn't until someone told me to reach out to my parents. And I did. I drove from Milton Keynes to Leeds. I went in, and it was one of the hardest conversations I've ever had, I'm going to be honest. You know, there was a lot of emotion, there was a lot of upset, but actually what I realised in telling somebody I loved, in telling someone that was close to me, the weight that was lifted off my shoulders was absolutely huge. And it started to normalise something that I'd kept a secret for so long, and that made me feel so much better. And then, you know, my parents convinced me to speak to other people that were around me, you know, my closest friends, and actually it meant that I had a constant outlet. It meant that my support system was right behind me, and although they didn't have the medical advice necessarily, they had that, you know, we love you, it's going to be okay, what can we do? And that meant that's chucking it now. That, you know, that meant the absolute world to me, because that's exactly what I needed. And that's what really helped me then in moving forwards and getting myself on the right track.
Right, so powerful to hear that, and amazing to hear that as you shared it, that burden was lifted, and you got that support. Is full recovery possible?
I think for me, it's a question that I love answering, because at the time when I was in the thick of it, I absolutely didn't believe that it was possible. You know, I thought, and that was part of the reason I didn't tell people, because I didn't know how they could help me. And actually now I'm 5 years away from having suffered with my eating disorder. You know, I'm 5 years having not been sick, having not had that obsession with food, having seen my body change in a massive way as well. You know, I've got 2 children, I've got a almost 4-year-old, I've got a 2-year-old. So, you know, a lot of my friends were asking me when I was pregnant, are you okay? You're going to be okay? Because you're about to see your body change in such a massive way. And actually, that was one of the best things that could ever have happened to me. I loved watching my body change. And after, you know, it's given me such a massive appreciation for my body. You know, I feel bad now for speaking about it and thinking about it in such a poor way, because I'm like, wow, look at what my body did. And I think that's what it's about. It's about seeing our bodies are an amazing thing. You know, we need to be kinder to ourselves. We need to treat ourselves better. We need to focus on the things that we can do. And all these little hang-ups that we have about ourselves, although very real, and you know, they certainly make us feel a certain way on particular days, but actually it's looking at what we are capable of. And for me, full recovery absolutely has been possible, and the appreciation I have, having seen what my body's done, particularly in this last few years, has made all the difference.
That's brilliant. That's really good to hear. What advice would you have for young people using social media around this issue of body confidence? So what they take in and think about themselves, but also what they say to other people on social media as well.
Yeah, I think social media plays such a huge part in our lives now. Without even realising, we spend hours on it, whether that's picking our phone up in the morning and scrolling, or doing the same thing in the evening. And before we know it, we've spent, you know, 2 hours in the evening, 2 hours in the morning on it. And I think social media has the ability to have a really negative impact on our lives. But it also has the ability to have a massively positive impact on our lives. You know, I know, because I've been through that experience of using it for the ways that aren't good, aren't going to make me feel good about myself. And actually, I realised, well, what am I doing? Why am I looking at these things? Why am I looking at people that look a certain way, that dress a certain way, where I'm thinking, why do I not look like that? Why does her face look like this and not mine? How can I do my hair like that? And actually, what am I doing that for? I'm only doing that to make myself feel bad. So it was a case of, right, remove those accounts, remove, you know, follow the people that I love, follow the people that make me feel happy, make me feel good about myself, and inspire me, make me want to do better, be better. And that made such a massive difference in my life, because actually then I was never getting that negativity. And now I see social media as such a positive thing. I know there's things out there that, you know, aren't good, but it's how you use it. And I think it's the same in how we are with each other. And, you know, it leads on to that advice, that what advice would you give to other people, whether it's regarding social media, whether it's regarding body confidence. And that's, you know, the way we talk to our friend often we're very positive. We give them good advice. We make them feel good about themselves. And quite often we're much more self-critical. And actually what we need to think is, that advice that we're giving to our friends, we should be giving to ourselves as well. And just being appreciative of what we have and using everything for good, I think, is so important.
Oh, that's really helpful. Thank you. So yeah, is there any other advice you'd like to give for young people facing it in a similar challenge and the way they view their bodies?
Yeah, I think for me, it's being kind to ourselves. And I think what I found really useful during my recovery was, whether people have heard it or not, that 5 ways to well-being, connecting with people socially, and making sure those people are good people, the people that champion you, the people that make you feel good, not those people that you close the door and you worry about what they're saying about you. If they're your people, you need to find new people, you need to find new friends. So for me, it's connecting with positive people, being active. So, doing as much physical exercise as you can. And that doesn't need to be that high exertion, in physical pain. That could be going outside, getting some fresh air, walking your dog, going for a chat with a friend, going to the gym, finding a class that you enjoy. Taking notice of the things around you. That was huge for me, particularly in lockdown, during the pandemic, where we couldn't go anywhere, we couldn't see the people that we wanted to see, and actually going out and noticing things that you may not have noticed before. I took everything in on those walks in lockdown, from watching squirrels run across the road to the noises that birds were making, to pointing out any sort of animal or any insect, or just really taking in that fresh air. And I think taking notice of things is another brilliant thing to do. Keep learning is one. Really keep trying to challenge yourself, push yourself, because that ultimately makes us feel good too, expanding our knowledge, and giving to others. So yes, we want to look after ourselves and make ourselves feel good, but giving to others and making others feel good too is a great way of building our confidence and building our self-esteem. And I think this as a whole makes us feel really good. So I definitely think they're things that have helped me in the past feel the very best that I can. And I really believe that they can help others too. And it's just really realizing that same light that you see in others is absolutely shining within you too. And it's really believing that's important.
That's so helpful. Thank you so much, Jenny.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Jenny, thank you so much for sharing your story and that advice for us. You've got an activity that people watching could do as well, haven't you?
Yes. So what we're going to do, guys, is a snowball activity. And what I want you to think about when I ask you some of these questions is, as long as you're happy to share them at some point, not all of you, but you might be sharing some of these answers. So just think about that when you're writing them down. But also think that it's really good to share some of the answers to these questions as well, because it might feel good for you, but it also might help others. So being honest in this activity is a really good thing as well. So we're going to have a snowball fight. And how it's going to start is you're going to get a piece of A4 paper, or 4 pieces of A4 paper would be better actually if you can. And I'm going to ask you 4 questions. And I want you to answer each question on a different piece of paper, please. So the first question is going to be, what does well-being mean to you? Okay, so having a think about what does that word mean to you? Okay. That is the first one on your first piece of paper. The second question is going to be, what are the things you do to make yourself feel good? So mine might be, for example, going to the park with my children and watching them run around. It might be that I go out and do a badminton session with my dad, who's a coach, and he gives me a good run round, and that makes me feel good. So what makes you feel good? The third question is, what could you do to support others with their well-being? So I see this as a really important one, because I always think that we can help others. I love helping my friends. I love helping my family. So have a little think about, you might know someone who struggles with their well-being in some ways, whether that be physical or mental. What could you do to support them with their well-being? And the fourth question is, what positive changes could you make to your physical or mental well-being to get the very, very best out of yourself? So what changes could you make? They're the 4 questions, okay? Your teacher will give you time now to answer those 4 questions one by one. And when you've completed that, what I would like you to do is screw those pieces of paper into balls, okay? And you know what's coming next. So we're going to split you into 2 teams. One team on one side of the room, one team on the other side of the room. We'll sort of make a line or a net in the middle with whether it's tables or chairs. And Miss or Sir is gonna set the timer. You're gonna get 30 seconds to have a snowball fight. So throw in those pieces of paper as quickly as you can in different areas of the room. And it's the winning team that has the least amount of snowballs on their side. Okay, we're gonna let you do that 3 times through. See who the champ is at the end. And after that, it would be great if your teacher could read out those questions again one by one, and you could start to unfold those pieces of paper and maybe share your own or share something that you see, providing everyone's happy to do that. Okay. Have fun. That's the main thing. Enjoy yourselves. You're going to get very active. You're going to get a bit sweaty, but this is what it's about. Enjoy yourselves and have fun.
Thank you for watching, and thank you also to Jenny for being so open and sharing your experience with us. I'd like you to think about one thing that you can take away from that video and apply it in your own life. And if you're in a class, why not try Jenny's activity? A big thank you also to Westfield Health for making this video possible.